Welcome to the CQC video training series. This is a spot topic video on web cameras. In this video, we're going to look at web cameras and how you get the video and potentially audio output from those web cameras into your user interfaces. And web cameras are obviously important in a lot of automation installations. So this is something that many of you will want to do. So let's go over to the administrative interface here, and we're in interfaces and user and spot topics, which is where I've been putting the interfaces I'm creating for these spot topic videos. And I'm just going to right click and do new file, and we'll call this one webcam. And let's just size it down a little bit here so we can see it. And what I'm going to do is create a web camera, a widget. I'll try to create this way down here so that you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm doing new cameras, web camera. And I'm just going to size it up here. Obviously, in your case, you will know what the output resolution of your camera is, so you'll size it appropriately to fit. Or you can let it scale as well. And in this case, I'm just going to let it scale. I don't even remember what this particular camera puts out. And now we need to set a URL that we want to get the content from. And if audio is available, we can also set mute and volume here as well. And it is in this particular case, so we'll demonstrate that. So but first, let's just get the video. So this particular one is an RTSP stream. So I'll do RTSP, and it's on 192.168.0.10. And the RTSP port is 554. And for this particular camera, the web URL resource is 11. And that's it, basically. If we got that URL correct, then it should start streaming. So let's just go over and load that and see. And there's our output. Obviously, the aspect ratio is a wider screen one, and I made it kind of square, so it's not fitting exactly. And so, like I said, you would get this correct in your own. I'm not going to bother here. So now let's deal with audio. We don't hear anything now because the initial audio state that we configured was to have it muted. So what we need to do, because of the fact that the values we want to control are just aspects of this widget, they are not coming from a field and they're not coming from a variable. So we can't use the usual sorts of widgets to control them. What we're going to do is create some static widgets. We know what the initial values are down here, so we can initialize our widgets to match that. And then after that, we just make sure that any changes we make via those widgets are applied to the web widget or the web camera widget. So first, let's create a mute checkbox. So we'll do new, and that would be buttons, and this will be a static checkbox. This isn't the optimum form for what we want to do here, but it's good enough. We don't want to waste time changing that. And I need to give this an ID because I will need to send it a command to set the initial value. So we'll call this one mute button. And what we want to do is when it is clicked and it's true, which means that mute is on, then we want to turn mute off. Oops, I forgot to give an ID to this web widget or web camera widget so that we can send it commands. So we'll call this one webcam. So now I'll go back to the button and let's set up our actions. So if we're in true state, that means that currently muting is on, so we want to turn it off. So we will send a command to the web camera to set the state or set the mute, and we'll turn it to false. And we're also in a static one. We're responsible for changing our own state. So we need to actually set the state of the button as well. So we'll set that to false as well. And let's just do copy all, and let's go over to the false action. So if it's clicked and we're false, that means that mute is not on, so we want to enable it. So let's just paste those in. And all we need to do is just change the state for these two. And for the text, generally for this type of thing, what you do is you put the opposite text. So if we're false, that means if we click it, we're going to mute it. So let's put that to mute. And if we're true, that means we are muted, and we want to say that we're going to unmute when we click it. So we're showing what's going to happen. We're not showing the current state. Okay, so that's enough for mute. So let's do a simple slider here for volume. So I'll do new sliders and knobs, and this will be a static slider. I'm not going to put any background or anything. So in this case, we also need to give this one an ID. So we'll call this one cam volume. And we want to set it probably to a cardinal type of value. And the range we want to be 0 to 100 because that's the values that the web widget takes for volume. And now for the commands, we're going to do just send it commands to set the volume to whatever the slider is. So on press, we will do webcam, set volume, and here we just want to insert the runtime value that holds the current value. So every widget, when it invokes some sort of action, it will provide you with certain values that tell you its state, and for a slider, the current value is available to us. All right, so let's copy that. And we also want to do it when they just do onset, which is just a click. So when they just press and release. So let's paste that in, same thing. And in this case, although normally we can't do this because if you're trying to send out messages to a device, they never respond quick enough to actually change them while you're dragging. But in this case, we're actually talking to a local video player. So we can do it in this case, and we can get sort of real-time volume. So let's paste that here as well. So basically that means that when we press down, we'll initially get the volume to where we pressed. When we drag, it'll follow us and keep changing as we move. And if we just do a click and release, then we'll also get it there. Okay, so let's save that. Oh, and now what we need to do is set these guys to match the initial values that we are setting on the web camera, which is initially muted, and let's say volume is initially 50. 100 is awfully loud. All right, so we want to go to the template itself, and we can use its actions. And what we can do is say, on the preload, we can just push in those values. So for the camera volume, we'll set the value to 50. And for the mute, we want to say that it is muted. So let's set the state to true. So that should make them match the initial values. All right, so let's save that. And as usual, when you're doing development, make sure that your this caching is turned off here so that the viewer will actually go back to the server and see your changes. So let's reload that. And now we should be able to unmute. And I'm going to hear myself. And I'm going to drag. And we can change the volume that way. And I can mute it again. So that's how it works. It's fairly straightforward, although you should be aware that this is actually being displayed by a separate program. It's not actually running in the interface viewer itself. There's so many issues with streaming media and third-party code and all that. So we move it out into a separate program, but it tracks exactly with the with the viewer. So it's as though it were actually part of it. Another thing to be aware of is that you can never put any other types of widgets on top of these because these are separate windows. Things like this are just graphical things that are drawn into this background window here. So they can never be on top of one of these real windows. And the same applies to the web widget as well. So this is something you need to keep in mind when you're doing your design. In many cases, what you might want to do is put these in a pop-up where you know that the background is clean. It's not, these guys are not sitting on top of any other widgets that they shouldn't be. So there you go. Fairly straightforward, and you can make good use of this. You could use this, for instance, as a baby monitor type setup, that sort of thing. And of course, you could also hear someone speaking to you from your front driveway or gate and that sort of thing. So try it and see what it does for you, and we'll see you in the next video.